right, Dr. Bank? Yeah, I'm wrong. Yep, cool. Thanks, fire away.
What's the overriding emotion after that one, Brad?
Oh, we got the job done. I mean, I use the analogy to the players of the golfer who chops it all over the place, but managed to shoot 2 or 3 under par and win the tournament. I mean, no one looks back and starts recounting every shot, and we don't look back and start recounting every poor decision, poor kick. In 12 weeks' time, we'll look back and see a W in the win-loss column. So that's all we're concerned about right now.
How are your nerves in the last 30 seconds?
Yeah, well, it was a really interesting situation, actually. I don't know if it's the first time it's happened, but we'd had 90 interchanges, and then we had a blood rule. And that blood rule was to a pretty important player in Petrie. So there was a bit of conjecture. I mean, it was pretty clear that we could put another player on to replace Drew, but the problem was we couldn't put Drew back on because we'd exceeded the interchange cap. So it presents a bit of a problem when you lose a player to the blood rule but then can't replace him. Even though you can replace him with another player, but you can't replace him, Drew Petrie, back on the ground, which, when you've got a game as tight as that, you're looking at tiny little things that can cost you. And we need to get a bit better organised around the contest in the last quarter, and I thought we really did that.
Do you think that's something that needs to be looked at? As you say, if a player is forced off the ground in that situation, it's not like you're taking him off by choice.
Yeah.
That perhaps they shouldn't count towards the 90?
It actually doesn't count late, so it doesn't count after there's been 90 exceeded, or you've hit your cap. You still have to take a player off the blood rule, so that doesn't actually count. You can replace him. So we replaced Petrie with Ben Brown, but the problem we had is that we couldn't put Petrie back on again. So, it's a long bow to draw, but theoretically you could have a player removed from the ground under the blood rule in pretty ordinary circumstances, and then you can't replace him again because you've hit your cap. So, we're talking 40 seconds here. There was 40 seconds to go, and we were happy to use our last interchange because we could get through 40 seconds. But then when you lose a player to a blood rule, it obviously changes it when it's a pretty important structural player.
Does that need to be kind of ironed out so everybody knows exactly what the case is if something like that happens again?
It hasn't been. It's not a confusing issue. I mean, the AFL spelled it out pretty clearly, but I just don't think it's right. I mean, you should be able to put the player that you've lost to the blood rule back on. So in this circumstance, we should have been able to patch Petrie up, bring Brown back off again, and put Petrie on. It's very unusual because it's really late in the game and a really tight game. So it's unlikely to happen again for 2 or 3 seasons, but you'd hate to see it cost someone a game.
After they drew level in that last quarter, what changed and enabled you guys to sneak over the line?
I mentioned earlier we got ascendancy back around the contest, which we didn't have for a lot of the day. And they outplayed us around the ball. I think they've recruited some really good hard midfielders, and I thought on balance they convincingly beat us in the contest throughout the day. It was only through some fantastic defensive efforts. I mean, Zeebel's 19 tackles, particularly some tackles late. Some desperate acts to get us across the line. So, I really think the overwhelming feeling I have at the moment is that's a game we would have dropped in the past. And maybe looking back to Adelaide round 1, potentially we dropped that game too, because we know we're not playing at our absolute optimum, but really good teams find a way to win when they're not playing well, and that's what we've been able to do to this point. But we're still really confident that our best is not far off.
You mentioned Zeeble. He looked like he hurt his shoulder pretty badly at one point. Was there any talk about him having to go off for an extended period or sitting out the rest of the match?
No, there was no. When something like that happens, as cold and callous as it sounds, it's just you leave it to the doctors and they tell you yes or no. So it was, to be honest, it was as simple as that. He was right to go and we put him back on. If he wasn't, you just move on to the next. Unfortunately, that was the ruling with Taylor Garner. He hurt his hamstring. It was a pretty quick decision by the medical staff to say that he's not right, and that's it. I don't answer back. I just move on.
Brucey just described the battle between Max Gawn and Todd Goldstein as one that we may not see for many years to come. What did you make of it? It was pretty special, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's very easy for a coach to say, gee, I wish they'd played a bit more defensively on each other. But I mean, that's the ruck. The ruck duel is one of the unique positions on the ground because, you can have midfielders that go either way, but generally midfielders defend then attack, whereas a ruckman's trying to get the ascendancy on his direct opposition player. And if you take a risk and run forward, it can burn you going the other way. And I thought both Max and Goldie did that at various stages, and it depended on which team was able to win the ball. But no, I thought they were. How do you split them? I thought they were two of the best players on the ground. But Gawn was terrific in the contest. Goldie was terrific outside the contest. I mean, you've got a ruckman who's kicked 5. It's a pretty good result. So, fortunately, I only have to give votes to our players in the best and fairest. I'm not sure how you guys are going to split them.
Boomer, biggest haul he's kicked in his career, I suppose, obviously showing no signs of slowing down.
Yeah, he just keeps going. We were actually talking during the week that someone said that Boomer's only ever kicked 5, or 5's the highest he's kicked previously, and I found that really surprising because I would have thought he kicked some real bags in the past before, but I'm guessing he's kicked 3, 4 and 5 on a number of occasions. I'm not exactly sure of the numbers.
To use another golfing analogy as we did earlier, probably a 3 or 4 club wind out there today.
Yeah.
It's pretty unique in AFL to get that, particularly for a team that plays a lot of games at Etihad Stadium.
Yep.
Does that affect you coaching-wise? I mean,
yeah.
First and second quarter in particular, it seemed to have a real effect.
Yeah, it did. I mean, we probably changed things around the ball and ahead and behind the ball more than we have in any other game. I mean, it was just the game was in a momentum swung one team's way, and then it swung back, and the wind had a fair bit to do with that. But we knew in the last or three-quarter time that we couldn't just go into lockdown mode. We'd need to score. So, fortunately, I've got a really intelligent group of players who can adjust to changes really quickly, because we did change it a lot more than I would have liked. But we were able to get the job done, and they were able to change what we had to change at three-quarter time.
What did you make of Ben Jacobs' job on Nathan Jones today?
Yeah, he clearly got the better of the duel in the first half. And then we actually dropped it in the second half because we felt that it wasn't in the team's best advantage. So, again, that's another example of really pleasingly that we were able, as a team, not just Ben, we were able to adjust around that. So we didn't make the change because of anything Ben was doing. It was just purely we needed to look at getting the ascendancy back around the ball.
Given the choice between a 21 goal to 20 game and a 10 goal to 9 game, what would you take?
If we're in front on both occasions, I don't care.
Looking forward to next week, probably the furthest thing from your mind right now, but facing Freo, you'll be 3-1, 3 wins, then obviously 3 losses. How wary are you of a side like that that's going to be looking for their first?
I think, to be perfectly honest, as a coaching group, you don't look back at the win-loss record. You look at the upcoming opposition. And the last quarter and the Fremantle West Coast game, they're every chance to win it. They're a side that's full of experience. They're really well drilled. So, we're expecting their best. That's all we can plan for.
Thanks.